Welcome to episode 22 of the Indie Creator Exchange. Today we're joined by fellow Delawarean Pat Higgins. How you doing, Pat?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, yeah, always good to have you back on the show, talk about what you're up to. This is your second time here, and you have a Kickstarter. So
I do.
we're going to get into that, but we have been kind of keeping loosely with the three questions, which is process, promotion, and future of comics. And so I, though, want to just jump right into the whole Kickstarter thing because you have 4 days at the time of recording this. We have 4 days left on your Kickstarter. You're more than halfway through on what you're going after, and you are super positive about closing this out. What was
Yeah.
the whole reason of going forward on a comic on doing the Kickstarter, other than trying to find a publisher to publish it?
Okay. So that's a good question. So I had a publisher for my last book, Pulp Bites, and their communication, not gonna lie, flat out sucked.
Yeah.
Just their communication in general, getting a hold of them, trying to find out, how many copies did you sell? How much did I make? Just simple questions that really
Basics.
should be
The
addressed. Basic questions. Basic communication. Hey, why isn't my book in the store? I had signings that were booked with shops. I get to the shop. Oh, we never got any of that. We ordered it, but we never got it.
Oh my god.
Luckily, I had some in my trunk, and I was able to bring some into those shops and do that stuff. But not cool. There was just a lot of not cool shit on their end. It was just frustrating. And I had a bunch of horror anthology stuff that could have, would have, should have been Pulp Bites Volume 2. And, I told them, hey, I'm not doing Pulp Bites Volume 2. So I kind of took all my, semi put together stuff that was horror anthology. Figured out a new name, Hellscape Americana. I think that kind of captures it really well. And here we go. New horror anthology, new name, and I'm doing it DIY. Forget the middleman. I want to know what's going on with everything. And here we are.
So, what is this that Kurt has in front of him? Is this the finished product?
So that's a proof copy that I printed out of like one of the stories from it.
Okay. And
Because it's what I'm putting out for Hellscape Americana is not 100% finished yet. So that's due for delivery October, I believe, is what I said in the Kickstarter. So I'm about halfway there. So I gave Kurt one of the stories, printed it out.
And what will it be?
What will it be? It'll be a 64-page book. I'm going to do that perfect bound. And it's going to have, I think, God, I can't remember how many stories. I think somewhere between 6 and 8 stories in it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, 8 pages is a general rule of thumb for anthology, right? Segments. Right. So that's great. And you're either going to self-publish or you're looking for a publisher.
I think as long as this Kickstarter works out, it's definitely going to be self-published. It's coming out either way. I don't know. Fingers crossed that we got 4 days left. But I think we'll get there. We'll see. But yeah, that's essentially self-published.
And Kurt, you can be able to rush this out so that it can get out with a couple of days left or a day or two left.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, not gonna be able. Okay.
No, yeah.
Oh, so yeah, tough timing on that. Sorry about that. Well, let's take a look. So you have your inimitable style. I remember when we spoke to you last time. I see a big influence of Charles Burns, right? And some of those indie guys is I don't want to I don't want to just assume, but maybe do you want to give us some of your big influences, because your style looks like a little different from the others, but the hair, like the way the way those like little sharp, lines go in and they miss the edge, the outside edge. There's always that little gap in there. I mean, I teach that to my students, and I have Charles Burns up there, and I have some other examples of it. Um, I remember Kirk Lindo from Brainstorm used to do that. That was like the only thing he used to do was just like do these little hair details, that are really, really eye catching, because it reminds you of Roy Lichtenstein, really, going back to those big paintings he did with the black and yellow, like, brush strokes, right? And the hair that he used to do. Um, he was one of the most famous pop artists, right behind Andy Warhol. So take us through your influences for those that haven't seen our first episode.
Um, yeah. So obviously, a couple of bigger influences that I have are, Dan Klaus, Charles Burns. Those are big ones for me. Um, and pretty much my whole thing with style, influence, all that stuff is it's pretty much everything that you've consumed over the years kind of filtered through your own brain and hands pretty
I
much.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sometimes it's not even conscious, right? It's just under
yeah.
the surface. Um, and I
And
remember.
your process, Pat, is one where you do all the inking, the drawing and inking by hand first. Then it's scanned in, and then there's that layer of, let's call it coloring. But there's a lot of other digital effects to it and everything. Is there, can you talk more about that as to how you kind of even structure the stories, as you're coming up with a story that you want to tell? Um,
Sure, yeah. So you almost got it 100% right.
okay,
Um,
I always mess it up. Sorry.
so the no, you were really close. So the layout and drawing stage, um, that or pencils, um, I do that all digital. Um,
Ah,
and the reason is, rather than erasing and redrawing the head, or oh, that hand looks kind of funky, we gotta switch it around. If I'm drawing digital, I'll just grab that hand and just kind of
yeah,
twist it to where I need it, rather than
yeah,
erase, redraw, or whatever. And then so I'll do a loose version to start out with that's digital. Then I'll do a tighter digital version, and then I'll print that out on Bristol. Usually 11 by 17 page. Um, and then I'll ink from there, and then I'll scan back in and add the colors, effects. Sometimes like the stuff you see in the background, like some of that stuff is, I'll use the digital straight line, like some of those lines in the background. Yeah, it's much easier mathematically to get it super straight with digital tools. So yeah, it's a combo of all that stuff. Then I'll add some nice texture, some colors.
Yeah, I like the colors. I like the paper, right? That the paper really, really like kind of affects the art, right? You get that kind of graininess to it. And I noticed in this one story, you kind of have this palette, this limited palette that you keep going to, and it gives a great feel for the storytelling, and it just kind of keeps you in this, like, I mean, color is also very subliminal too, so you're controlling people's thoughts and emotions with color choice. And a lot of times, you know comics are over colored, right? There's that there was that great commentary, I forget who did it, but she was like, if an artist is putting a lot of detail on the page and there's a lot of interplay, you don't have a lot of room for a colorist to come in and put so much interplay and dynamics on there, because then you end up with more than 100%, you know, of stimulative, art, and on the page, and it's just overdone. So you have, I assume you're doing your own colors. You have a great balance of that, because there's always some areas of detail, to look at, and then you spend some time reading the dialogue, which isn't too heavy. There's a nice I guess allocation on every panel without getting too heavy. And I said this last time, you really move through, right, the panel to panel, and and then the color is just a great way to just keep you in the same like frame of mind, the same feel. So I commend that. I'm just at the point where I gotta catch up with where Kurt is. Yeah, I'm just at that point now in the story where there's these guys getting into this, like you're zooming in a little, and you're getting into this like kind of like quiet scene where the guy's messing with this skin tag growth thing, whatever, and yeah, it's great because you're like icked out, but you're also just like mesmerized. So this is I guess this is one story which we're going through the whole thing, right? Spoilers and all. Um, but I like just stopping at this point. I love where I'm at in this segment. This is just let's see, what is it, an 8 page? Oh, this one goes 15 pages, right?
Yeah, this is a longer one.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So I guess you have some longer ones and shorter ones. All right. So
Pat,
But
what
again, I
is
think with
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
that's one of the benefits of DIY is you're not beholden to a specific amount of pages. It's what the story dictates. It's kind of like what we've gotten with like streaming television. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
a 26-minute episode. It can be 37 minutes. It can be 43. It's what the story dictates. I think that's kind of what I like about doing my own stuff is that I can figure out the pace. I can figure out how long the story should be.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask where you get your ideas from.
Oh man. So maybe you guys are like this too, where you've got like either a notebook or maybe like the notes app on your phone or something, where you just get like a weird premise and you write it down, type it in, whatever your process is, and you end up with this really odd notebook of just one or two sentence ideas that if anybody ever found it, they would think you're a crazy person. Um, that's pretty much what I like. I'll pop up with some kind of weird idea,
Is
and
it based
I'll
on
write it down.
watching? Is it just based on watching like other television or comic book material, or is this like something that you just kind of grew out from? Like maybe even as a young guy, you had an experience where you always kind of like because it's a there's a bit of David Lynchian ism to it. Like there's the Americana growing up in suburban, affluence or whatever you want to say, but there's that body horror meets arrogance to
Yeah, so the ideas are kind of like life stuff. Like, you overhear a weird conversation in a bar. Um, you see something weird. You're talking to a buddy that's telling you something, and you're like, "What? What are you talking about?" So this idea of this story was loosely based on somebody I know, and way exaggerated.
Right.
of course. Yeah,
So
I
this
hope
person
so.
didn't want to go to the doctor. So they got some fish mox, which is essentially amoxicillin for fish
Right.
Oh my god.
from a pet store.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then I was kind of thinking about that one day, and I was like, I need to write that down because I can take that somewhere.
I it's funny because my dog is my little puppy. I have a Chinese crest that weighs like 7 pounds. It's like a little lap dog, but it's taking Viagra because it had heart problems and liver problems, and or was it kidney or liver? I forget. But they just it and it saved her life. She was on the brink of we were going to have to put her down, and everybody was crying and moping around, and she is fine now. And we have to give her this stuff 3 times a day. Um, so there is some overlap. I don't know how we're talking about this, but I saw a tweet. I also saw a tweet from somebody that I knew that said, my wife and my cat are both on the same meds. Should I be concerned?
Yeah, my dog takes Viagra too.
There you go. Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
that does answer my question. And you know, picking up on little things in life, especially nowadays, and then converting it into, let's just say escapist, comic book stuff. I think that's a true treasure, and you do it so well, Pat. You do it so well.
Thanks.
yeah, the
Yeah, I think that's just something that we need to do, though. Whether you're an artist or whether you're a writer, you need to live. You need to get out, experience stuff.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That reaction shot down on the bottom of the left is great. So and talking about plotting, like when you're the writer and the artist, um, it's it's different. A lot of creative teams are put together with a separate writer who just thinks about themes and dialogue and everything all day long. And the artist has to do all of the above. And it really works here. You have this thing that I love in, especially in horror, installments. It's called the ratchet, right? It's like you introduce a concept and everything, but then it keeps ratcheting up, right? And every time you turn the page, right, you see like, and sometimes these things are getting worse and worse. Here the guy is getting these like growths that are like getting bigger and bigger, until finally, you have the climactic scene. But that's one thing about horror in general, movies, books. It's like things just go a little bit of time. It's like the boiling frog. You're just going a little bit farther, and you want to put into people's mind, oh, should I back out and do something else, or should I just keep plowing forward, because that is really relatable, and
I was saying,
yeah, yeah,
I was saying before we jumped on that I think one of the best kind of cosmic horror, like modern thriller comic book artists is Charles Burns. Black Hole being specific, and I remember back in the '90s getting a hold of it, and for probably 10 years, I could only make it like 4 or 5 pages in because it just creeped me out, and it really it did what it was supposed to do, which was seep into me, and make me uncomfortable. So, and Jake, I like that idea. I've never heard that before. That ratcheting kind of thing, like having something and just tightening and tightening and tightening. I like
oh
that a lot.
yeah. It goes for it goes for like comedy skits too. Like if you watch any SNL skit, there's like this formula of somebody doing something weird, something offbeat, and then like you know they do it like 3 times, and it just keeps getting more and more extreme. I think Monty Python used to have that too. But with horror, it's like grossing people out, or scaring the bejesus out of them, progressively more and more, because we know how this works. When you sit down and plunk down with a horror movie, you got your popcorn, they're going into a house and everything seems fine, everything's like normal, and then
yeah,
like little things start to go wrong, and then you got the ratchet. So
yeah. I think it's the general idea of kind of the story arc. You kind of bring it to that peak
right, right.
and ramp it up as you go through.
Yeah, and I like the. I mean, sometimes I complain about comics that are too airy. Like they don't really use backgrounds too much, and there might be like a lot of wasted space. But you put in stuff in your panels so that you don't really have that. And that's what I like about those colors and those kind of like they're simple backgrounds in some cases, but they do a great job of just framing everything, right? And they just keep you
Yeah,
in there,
yeah.
right? And like
Placement
I was
too.
distracted by how I was not distracted, by anything. It just moves you, it just moves you right through, and I like that.
Yeah, I don't think we should be, distracted by, anything. I think that's kind of our goal is to not distract. But yeah, I'm glad you were distracted by the not distraction.
Right. I mean, Denny O'Neil said, everything should have a purpose, and it should be helping the story along in some reason. If there's like a random sculpture somewhere, then it should, turn out that that's like, the secret, container, later on. Otherwise, why are you distracting people, with that, like, and you know it's a formula. People can break it. I mean, there's all kinds of artists, that do stuff like sometimes you have like somebody like some of the underground guys that the page is just completely filled with every inch is like a detail that they want you to go over, like a Where's Waldo thing. um
Yeah.
but
And sometimes that stuff has to do with the story. Um,
yeah.
Sometimes not, though.
Right, right. Like, and speaking of the underground guys, you have like Robert Williams, his paintings, right? He really packs a lot of stuff in there, so that you look at the main, like foreground, and then then you go in and spend time looking all around every little section, to see what he put in there, and they're like all these other kind of thoughts and other kind of like tangential images, that I guess contribute to a larger, more complex theme. But in comics, it's really like you want to tell your story. You want to have people engaged, and can't wait to turn that page and see what happens next, and then hopefully there's a nice payoff. So yeah, that's great. People can expect more of this. You have a bunch of these stories that you work in your style, right? And you just go
Yep.
from one to the other. So that sounds like a great idea for a Kickstarter. A nice 64-page volume of that. You know.
So with the Kickstarter, Pat, what have you been doing to promote it?
Um,
Have you been out on
Pretty
Route
much.
59 with a sandwich board yet?
um, lot of Instagram. Like Instagram's pretty much the only platform that I'm on anymore.
Uh huh.
Right.
So Instagram promotion of it. Actually reaching out to people through email. Um,
You have a newsletter?
I don't, but I just started doing Substack, which is essentially like
Yeah, yeah, we have one.
part of what they do as a newsletter.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So
We're doing that now too.
yeah, I just started doing that, and yeah, the first one was kind of an introduction about me, and then the Kickstarter stuff. I need to do one this week, so I'm gonna try to do one. Do a little Substack thing once a week. Um, but yeah, text messages to people.
Uh huh.
Um, not random,
Spamming.
customers or anything, but like people I know. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Especially people that I know that aren't on, Instagram or anything. If I know they're not on Instagram, like, hey, dude, I'm doing this new thing. Text message.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
if I see people out and about, again, get out in the world and live. Um, when I see people out and about, I'll mention it to them. Yeah, so
How was your con?
that's pretty much.
How's your con game?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to any recently. I'm trying to think when the last I I know I've gone to one this
I
summer.
know. Are you tabling or are you floating?
Tabling usually.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, I think.
they're around. It's the warm season. I think we have some big ones here in New York City. And the region. And then sometimes I would travel up an hour upstate and see what's going on, like Poughkeepsie and stuff like that. And it's these like medium sized cons. Um, but they do get repetitive. It's just you want to get a whole new crowd of people in front of your stuff and see the possibilities. Do you get frustrated with cons, or do you find them to be productive and worthwhile?
I think for the most part they're pretty worthwhile.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. The last one I did was Fan Expo in Philly. That used to be Wizard World.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, I find them helpful. So I'll usually make money at them.
right.
If I have a bad show for some reason, where I don't make as much as I thought I was going to make or wanted to make, um, they have paid off as far as either commission jobs or freelance jobs. I've had people from a company. They run some kind of company that they just happen to be going through a convention, and they'll take my card, and I'll get an email like a week later, like, "Hey, I saw you at this convention. I've got this illustration job for you. Do you want it?"
Wow.
And then we'll do stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. It is. It's definitely networking and exposure. Sometimes people they go by your table, they don't buy anything, but then the next time they say, "Oh yeah, that's that guy," right? And they it's like what do I want to say? It's a cumulative effect.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's you can't do one convention and think like, well, that wasn't good. I'm not doing conventions anymore. It's you got to keep building because everyone I do, you know, subsequently gets better.
Yeah, it's also tough for artists. I know there might be some people listening. It's also tough for artists that might only have one or two things. It's good to have, three, four, five things, because then your chances of, selling is better, and you also look like like a more accomplished person. But everybody's got to begin somewhere. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's if you've only got a couple things, you can always split a table with somebody.
right. Try to
That's always an
economize.
option.
Right. Yeah, that's what Kurt and I used to do back in the day.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, and it was also really nice because we used to uh, like all the artists, not all of them, a large amount of artists would we would do the circling wagon wheel with the tables. So we would turn everything in, and you would just then we would keep tables in the middle so we could throw snacks and beers and everything on there, and then
yeah,
and then everybody. But I remember the two things I remember most was working on other people's pages with them. Jake being one of those people. But the networking was insane. I mean, and I had three publishers I was working with, but that most of the people that um, I was working for, I was working with those people who were in the artist alleys. So it was like inking and penciling and whatever had to be done to get books out there. But I my biggest I have to be the old grouchy man in the room about conventions is I just the grotesque amount of canning and selling nostalgia and cosplay. I think just distract you know
and Funko
eighty
heads.
percent, 80% of the attention. Because the other thing was, it'd be like, Jake, hey, watch my shit while I go over to that guy and start going through his quarter to dollar books. Back then, it was like quarter and 50 cent books, and I would come up with a bunch of stuff. And of course, I'd pick up a couple for Jake, and I'd be like, oh, look. Check, you probably like these. And you're like, oh yeah, I don't have them. And then Jake would go out. Oh yeah, watch my shit. And then Jake would come back. Hey, I checked these things out. And so I attribute my education to Jack Kerr, finding out and learning having a greater appreciation to Jack Kirby from Jake, because it was like anytime he found a cheap little copy of something, he'd buy it and give me, look, you gotta read this, you gotta study it. This is the king of comics. Yeah. I'm into Mobius. I'm into John Buscema. I would keep kind of staying in my stall, but I just are you familiar with the IC3 up in Connecticut? It was March of this year, and there's going to be another one. It's the first like indie comic show. It's everybody that's gone so far. I've asked them if it's more like a trade show than just let's say an SPX where it's indie people, but it's a lot about publishers meeting artists, and writers meeting artists, and artists meeting it seems like, but everybody said it was really good. We submitted our application.
I don't know about that one. I'll have to check that one out.
IC3, yeah, and you have to submit an application. Just SPX is what do they
lottery.
Lottery, yeah. So and then
that's
out.
A great show.
Yes, it is.
SPX is a great show.
I'm going to go down this year. We're going to meet up with Dan Snook from Rave Sensation on a Sunday, and we're going to hit that show. And,
so it's in New Haven, the Indie Comics Creator Con, ICCC. I think they might want to rethink those initials. That's also like the International Criminal Court or something. But next one is
close enough.
March 25th, 2025. So it seems like they're doing it every March now, and they do I think they do a fundraiser. They do a crowdfunding for the con itself, which I forget
the
what
rental.
When it gets you something. So we're definitely trying to get into that, because and they had one in Brooklyn too, where when they call it a creator con, it's more emphasis on small independent people, self-publishers, zines, and then you don't have the big companies there so much, and and there's really a lot there. I went to this Brooklyn one, and you had like maybe 200 tables. It was outdoor, and there was a lot of stuff to see. I bought a couple of pieces, and I'm talking to people. So I think the creator cons are a little bit more focused on the DIY folks.
Yeah, that's what I like about SPX, and it's more focused on the comics. It's not focused on cosplay and Funko Pops and
nonsense.
All that stuff.
Plushies.
Nonsense.
They're taking over the
there's
world.
There's also PCX in Philly, the Philly Comics Expo.
Right.
That's another indie one. I've done that for the last 2 years, and I'm doing it again this year. That's a really good one with like 100% indie cartoonists. It's not, you're definitely not going to find cosplay and Funkos at that one.
Right.
Or Frank Miller.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're all seeing the the news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, and it just seems like so distasteful for me to like somebody have to pay $1,000 to get on a plane and get hotels, and then you're just at the same kind of convention that you could have in your nearest big city. There's giant like audiences that come out with these like Marvel panels and stuff, and I know they're out on the West Coast, and they're doing all these like Hollywood crap out there, but some of these are too big and they're too crowded, and they suck. Like the Big Apple one is here in New York City at the Javits. It's $60 now for one day. And you're trying to make your way down the aisles, and it's just so packed of kids and grown-ups, and long lines. I remember the year that they were introducing virtual reality goggles. There was a 3-hour wait for people to get on this this like boxing ring and put the goggles on for like 5 minutes and then just swing around and stuff. And it was like you can pay $65 and sit for 3 hours on a line. It's crazy. You want to be
Yeah.
circulating, and so that was the last time I went. But they usually have that in the fall, and you know, it's sold out every year. It's huge. It's just like it's just kind of like these. I guess I want to call them comic tourists. They're just like
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of that.
yeah,
Nostalgia
And it,
fairs.
right.
and I think, I think a lot of that stuff, in a way, it doesn't belong at a comic book convention,
Well, they
like
shouldn't call it a
like
comic
you were
book
saying,
con.
right, like the VR glasses, the movie star
It's
stuff.
games. Yeah, that's
But
games.
at the same time, it's like some of that stuff is comics adjacent because, maybe it has to do with some kind of comics IP, which, all that Marvel stuff, like, of course it
Yeah, I'm
does.
sure. Right.
It's tied into those comics, but
Yeah, it's all tied in now. Every game now is a comic. Every comic is a game.
right.
And what's the one I just saw? I just saw a movie trailer for I don't know, Assassin's Creed or something like that. They're all coming out one at a time. The D&D movie. It took off. Now it's a franchise. Big stars and
Yeah.
everything. So
So yeah, it's all tied in, but it's not comic book focused as comic book focused as it should be.
yeah. Well, the question of what a comic book is changing as
Good. Yeah. I was just gonna jump on that, Jake. But and if I can, I can. Um, and this goes into the whole like future of comics framework as a question, Pat. But you take when we say the three of us right here and now say comic books, it is not gaming. It is not a television or movie show, and it is not manga. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but those are the things that are stealing the most attention and money. So I put it out to you as a question, generally speaking, like where do you see us as comic book artists heading towards?
Well, I see Turbo Pit Fighter getting picked up by HBO,
Oh, would you stop? You stop.
don't jinx it.
and then you guys will be at San Diego.
Oh God! I
Yeah.
hope. Can I be honest with you? I love Jake too much to be one half of a Ninja Turtle.
Well,
No, I mean that's
you know what, Kurt? I'll tell you right now. If they give me enough,
Oh God!
if they give me enough money to blow on an animated movie, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, I
I mean,
know. I know.
why wouldn't you?
Fact 3. Here we go.
But
Yeah.
but no. So the serious answer,
Thank you.
where do I see comics going and all that stuff? I think it's, my opinion is that it is headed more towards indie focused stuff. I kind of feel like it's almost like the big guys will always be there, like
Yep.
DC and Marvel ain't going anywhere. We're not going to stop that. But I do think, some of the middle ground publishers probably not going to be around because there's kind of no need for them. When we can all self-publish, we have the means to self-publish. Why wouldn't we? I kind of see that going away, because we can do our own thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's also a question of what the future holds for technology and delivering art and story. So it's been a while since we last spoke, so we should probably ask, what your views are on the technologies that are emerging, and it's not just digital comics where you can just flip through these things on a tablet or a phone, God forbid, but what about AI and this kind of you know I mean, we see the backlash for comic artists that use AI to cheat, and to create, like, to give them a head start and all that stuff. But there is a very interesting avenue that I think is developing right now, and it's going to be where you have your art that you enter and submit, and then you hit a button, and then it animates it all, right? And it gives you, like, the framework of animation, which then you tweak and maybe cut out a lot of the work. And Kurt is keeps telling me that's sooner than we think. And it's exciting to me to have like a machine that you stick a comic in one end and it spits out an animation on the other end. But what are your thoughts on that as it takes over the world?
I think there's a lot of interesting technology out there right now. I don't see it replacing actual creatives,
Human touch.
Human beings.
Yeah.
human beings, creative human beings. I don't think it can replace us. 'Cause it can't think of the weird shit that I can think of and you can think of. It's not going to filter through AI the same way. You know, you could give it the same prompts and maybe some of the same influences, and it will not come out the same way. It won't be the same, you know,
Well, it
interesting, unique
yeah,
perspective
it
that
always,
you have.
by definition, it has to always base everything it does on something that was fed into it,
Yep.
before. So,
And in a way, so do we.
right,
Yes. No, you're absolutely right, Pat. You're
But
absolutely right.
where that differs is, that translation that happens between your brain and your hands and, Bob Ross's happy accidents,
right,
the machine isn't going to have a happy accident.
Yeah.
right,
You
yeah,
may accidentally put down this line and you're like, oh my God, that was it. That's the thing.
right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of hackery out there. So you're probably going to see people capitalizing. Walking down a Walmart aisle and seeing a whole bunch of AI generated crap. It's going to be
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, you wonder what the future holds. But that
Well,
those
one
are the two.
thing I'd like to just kind of circle all the way back to the beginning with Scout Comics. The thing I don't really understand their business model other than it seems like 99% of their energy is on whatnot. And do you because you have been published by them, do you have a feeling like they're completely doing a job at promoting their comics through whatnot, and that just seems to be it?
Yeah. From my experience and from talking to other people who've also had a similar experience, my take on it is that they're so focused on the collectible end of it, which I'm not interested,
Right,
in the
right.
collectible end of it. I think it was cool that we did a bunch of variant covers. I think that's cool as shit.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm not the guy that's going to go out and buy a $20 book because it has a different cover.
Right.
right,
I'm going to buy the $5 version.
right.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure as hell not going to go on Whatnot and buy it in an auction format. They do focus very heavily on the Whatnot thing, and I'm not a big fan of it. Like I checked it out, I looked into it, I got on there just to see what was going on with it, and it's not my cup of tea. I think the other thing that they're maybe trying to bank on, trying to do is like the multimedia IP stuff
Yeah,
where they've got, they're trying to get stuff optioned for movies and TV shows and, get their cut of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I could see people wanting to do that because that's like a jackpot. Like six figures all at once if you get an option. That has happened in the industry. And I don't know if you're soliciting it, if it's more likely to happen. I think, Hollywood or whoever, is just, production companies. They're fickle and they're just like what they want, and sometimes they're just looking for something that fits into something, just by happenstance. Um, I was selling some old crap on eBay the other day, and I put on this original. I have this like it's like a signed print from this old guy that was in, he was a New Yorker cartoonist. And I'm just looking up his bio. And then when he was 60, he started doing children's books. The guy's name is like William Steig. And then in 1990, he wrote a book called Shrek. And it was about a green ogre who lives in a swamp. And it was just this little cartoony children book, just like a couple of others that he had put out, and he was just like, a kind of mediocre children's book author. But along comes DreamWorks. And, this guy was in his mid to late 80s at this point, and they gave him $500K to option it, this idea called Shrek. And then they made it, one of their biggest CGI things. The first movie alone is, grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. And then, they're on Shrek 2, Shrek 3. And, this old guy, so I'm just reading this bio because, I'm basically reading his, like, obituary, and because I'm just putting on, I have the guy's signed thing. It's how much is it worth? Is it worth $30? Is it worth $50? So I'm just, getting rid of some crap here. And then, I'm reading the story, and it says that he went to the opening premiere of Shrek. He was 90 at that point. He was thrilled. He loved it. He says, "Oh, my whole idea came alive on the screen with all this computerized animation." And he thought it was fantastic. And he had $500,000 to leave his kids. And then he died happy, like a couple years later. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting story. And, Kurt and I mentioned, like, many times, the Men in Black, the Mask, the Walking Dead, the Crow. You never know which one of these comics could get plucked out of obscurity, and become the next.
I think it's getting actually easier and easier to calculate. And this is just my own kind of like playing with formalization. I think the number one thing, if you're ever approached to sell out your character to the movies, do two things: hire an attorney and get them to help you say yes and get all the money you can up front.
Right. I mean,
because this is the reason most things don't go. And there's hundreds of videos on YouTube of IPs, comic book IPs, not going forward because of difficult creators slowing the process down. These huge movies, and these developers and producers, they don't need you. They need your IP, and then they want to move into that space. Cutting residuals for things that come along. That's why you need an attorney, a good entertainment attorney. The second thing is that because data being grabbed off the internet with AI and crunching it, they're going to find, they're going to be able to pinpoint the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So believing that you're going to homespin something that visually is pleasing and it gets a couple people to come in and get it, that's not realistic. But if you, let's say, go into the indie comic book arena and you build a community, to back on my whole Scout comics, I believe they kind of function off of the Twitch model. And Twitch live streaming is a really, really heavy element in being an artist nowadays. Any artist. And it's literally, I believe, I don't know, I'm not doing it. I'm interested in doing it. Jake and I talk about going live all the time. Riverside is what we use for podcasting. They have all of these new bells and whistles and tricks and everything to be able to do it. And we will. But it's another layer of responsibility that takes you away from the drawing board. So
yeah,
it's challenging. It's challenging to just be the guy who is going to make a comic book and put it out there, and people are going to love it because the cover, or just the cover, let's say, in a comic book store. I just think that is complete foolishness for anybody to live off of, in the sense of personal responsibility to their own creativity. But at the other end of it, and I just want to shout out to Pat again, he runs his own website. That is a huge thing. He now has a Substack. That's a huge thing because that's the newsletter and the blog a component to it. Once that's being built, whether Hellscape pulls off its Kickstarter is not really the success. The success is if you got 35 people that want your comic, you need to stay focused on those 35 people because those 35 people will go to 10 people and those 10 people go to 10 people. That's just grassroots.
Yeah.
But you gotta put in, and when I say you, I'm not saying you, Pat, I'm saying Jake and me and anybody else that's listening as an indie comic book artist. Get realistic. Get realistic in your responsibilities. You're one half artist and you're one half marketer. That's just the way the world, that is just the way the world is. And if you want to be 100% the artist, then you need to pay for marketers to do that work. And that is just absolutely, I see no way of getting around it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, as an independent creator, I think we all have like 20 different jobs we have to do. And it's just finding that balance between all the different stuff you got to do,
Well, I want to call out to you once again. You're a professional illustrator. You do a lot of branding for logos and labels and stuff. And when I go through your Instagram, which is has a link down in the description as well as your Kickstarter campaign and your website and your Substack, that's one thing. But you're also teaching at our community college full time, and you have a wonderful family, and you have a lot of good friends. We hang out at different events around town. And then you have these crazy sick ideas in your notebook that you want to turn into little comic books.
Yeah.
I think you do it perfectly. I just think if I was to give you one piece of advice, is the putting more energy into promoting yourself through your website and your Substack and gathering 100 people that love this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's an email I get and, what's Pat Higgins up to? Oh shit, there's another Hellscape. Oh, I got to get that because, and it puts it in there.
Well, that's on the horizon. I'm working on that.
Yeah. But with that being said, let's bring this to a close. It is the Indie Creator Exchange. I went and had some coffee with Pat. He printed off this awesome copy of one of the stories from Hellscape. I gave him a copy of I did give you a copy of the Turbo Teaser, didn't I?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, last time we talked.
Exactly. I'm like, what the heck? So anyhow, can you give us any feedback from, the last time we had 6 pages and now that we have another 6 pages in this little teaser of ours? Because we love the feedback.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the composition's great. The balance of black and white, awesome. The story's super cool. I love how it's kind of like just over the top, and that's, I love that kind of stuff.
We are over the top.
Over the top. I love it. I love it. I'm a fan of, take it up to 11.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the composition's awesome. The lettering is really well done. So who's lettering?
Me.
Yeah, well,
okay.
we
and Jake.
we had a painstaking process of getting to this point, because we actually typed it all out on a computer font, and then Kurt went over that with a light box and hand lettered it to give it the human touch. But that ended up being kind of time consuming. Like it would eat up like maybe 3 or 4 episodes in a row, and we are going to.
It was 6.
Yeah,
we had a month there's a month and a half of episodes, which is 6
just doing the lettering.
We're dealing with the lettering issue, but I love those episodes, Jake. We really did learn a lot, but take them to what we learned.
Yeah, well, we what we learned is that you can use a computer font that does look like a hand font if you're willing to use all those alternative characters and you know make it hard to recognize. Like I don't know if you ever got any junk mail that looked like it was handwritten, and then you look real closely, and it's
Oh
like
yeah,
a computer font that's trying to trick you. So
yeah, and there are some really good fonts out there. Um, I've got a couple that they've got alternate characters for like
right.
every single letter. I made a font that's got, I think I've got 5 different alternate characters for each letter, and it's kind of like my
Oh wow.
handwriting.
That's the
Um,
future. That's it right there. Because there it doesn't look like a font. It looks like
yeah.
it doesn't look like a computer font, but it really is. It's just
Well, that one, it's not in that book because
Yeah.
that font
Fit.
it didn't quite match the tone that I was looking for. Because that's the other thing
Right.
with fonts is it's got to match the feel of your
Story.
story, and that's the lettering that
Exactly.
you guys have is it fits. It's not distracting. It
Yeah.
feels like it's part of that world.
Well, when we get to the next six page teaser, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be around 6 episodes worth of Jake and I arguing over it. The thing though I grabbed out of 6 episodes with Jake is his particular way of seeing and also wanting to feel the text. So then when I do, because I'm going to do my own version in handwriting, hand lettering, because I believe
Yeah,
all elements up to maybe like we shade some of the balloons gray because we don't want them or need them that dark. But I believe 98 to 99% of it should be all handmade. And
yeah,
layers can be brought into Photoshop and tweaked out. And that's what Jake had to contest with was my PSD files that had that layer, which were multiple balloons and dialogue boxes, where then he had to go in and really make them, fit, if you
right.
will, from that. So you're looking at a combination of 100% or 50% me lettering hand by hand, and 50% of Jake's energy of going in and physically adjusting and editing them.
yeah,
So
we were
there's
changing
there
words.
we put a lot of energy into our hand lettering.
Yeah.
And I wish Cartoons
No, and you can
Kayfabe was
tell.
still. I wish Cartoons Kayfabe was still around because I would blow these pages up 24 by 36 and send them to him. Just to and put that down because that was always the biggest thing with Ed and Jim was if you're not hand lettering or doing something that's of an intrinsic additional value to your storytelling with lettering.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good book to check out if you haven't already.
Oh wow!
Try to get
Oh
it in
no!
frame.
Oh yeah! Yeah yeah yeah! Oh, I'm gonna get that.
Yeah,
It's Nate Picos. Um, I think he's one of the guys that I think it's is it Blambot or Comic Fonts. I'm terrible. I should know.
It's all right. It's all right.
Anyway, Nate Picos. I know you've seen his work before. Blambot is who he's with. Um, but there's a lot of the actual like digital lettering, like how tos and stuff. But there's also a lot of rules that I know you guys already know. I know I already know, but sometimes you don't even think about them. And just kind of not necessarily rules, but like lettering conventions that we have in comics, reasons why we do things. So it's a good balance of you know design, but also there's some technical stuff in there with like digital lettering. Really awesome book though.
yeah. I am Kurt hinted at it, but I am a stickler for typography. I'm a little like too much into the finer aspects of kerning and leading and spacing and the
Yeah,
the uh, the air space around it, and I do think that comics should play around more with colored balloons. Why are they always black and white, high contrast in the middle of all this beautiful art? You're making
Yeah.
this like,
Yeah.
So it depends. It's a good thing, but the funny thing was about us spending so much time on that is that we really thought and rethought what's in the balloons, and we were making last minute changes.
That's true.
All the
That's
way
true.
up to
That's true.
until
Editing.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Powerful.
one of the reasons why is because when I penciled out the comic, it's the word balloons are all drawn in. So
Yeah.
Kurt is really stuck with those word balloons unless we alter it, to make a little more room or whatever. And the next one, we're not doing it that way.
Yeah, issue two would not. We're going to have the balloons and the text separate layers. We've already made that decision.
Right. They'll be in the pencils, but they won't be in the inks. And then that'll give us a lot more flexibility to just like
Right.
stick balloons on later. And we're gonna have to figure that out too, because who's gonna draw the balloons? Are we gonna use guides, and we're gonna use ellipse templates and stuff?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
But Pat, I wanna let us get all going because we've overstayed the marker at 45 minutes where we like to keep bite size. But is there anything you would give in the way of like advice, feedback, or even a question as Jake and I move along in our Making Turbo journey?
I would say just keep going.
Thank you.
Keep going. What you're doing is working.
Thank you.
So keep doing it. Keep making more. I love to hear about the lettering process. That was pretty cool because I'm also a stickler for typography and all that stuff. So it's always interesting to hear.
Oh God, check
other
out
people's
check out
perspectives.
those episodes. You could see on those episodes, it's probably like the front screen
Jake,
probably just has word balloons on it, and
I'm good.
hear us argue.
I want you to help me. I want you to help me remember. We're gonna invite Pat on for one of those episodes where we're like 2 or 3 episodes deep, and we're both gonna basically choke each other out through the camera. We're gonna have Pat on. Well, if he wants to, only if he wants to.
I'll be the referee.
He can be the referee.
That's a great.
That would be super cool.
That's
That'd
a great idea.
Cool.
We can call it. We can call it.
Cool.
We could call it. Be careful what you ask for.
Oh, we'll see about that, buddy. We'll see about that. But I just want to say right at the end, like I said with Pat, which I can't thank enough for spending time with us once again, and we're going to do it again and again because
anytime.
that's what the Indie Creator Exchange little interview podcasting segment we have with Making Turbo channel. That we have a link to our Doom Mag Substack. As I said before. The professionalism that Pat Higgins has by having his own website and his own Substack. Those links are going to be down below, as well as his Instagram and anything else that he would like to add down into the descriptions. But with that being said, I have nothing else to add. I can only wait until the next time we get together. Jake, do you have anything before we let Pat make the last word?
No, just a reminder, check out our YouTube channel. We have our Making Turbo Pit Fighter, which is our flagship. We have our Indie Creator Exchange, which you just watched. And we have our Comics That Influence, where we do flip-throughs. That's all.
Cool. Anything you want to say, Pat, before you head out?
No, that's about it. You said you got the website and contact info. Pat-Higgins.com. That's my website. phiggins80 on Instagram. And yeah, if the Kickstarter goes through and makes the goal, I think it's still available to order after that, I believe.
Yeah.
I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
So that's pat-higgins.com/Hellscape. That's the shortcut to get there, so I don't have to give you the whole long Kickstarter address.
Right.
But hopefully that's still up and I made the goal and you can grab a copy.
So, folks, whenever you're watching this, go back and get your copy. 64 pages of anthology horror fun.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, Pat, I'll see you out there in Little Wilmington, Delaware. And
Yeah.
Jake, I'll see you on Sunday because our next, let's see, Tuesday we're meeting with Tom Chalemi, who is a comic book store owner, writer, and publisher. The comic book store owner part is what we're really excited because we haven't had one of those on the channel. So we're really gonna pick him apart on, how do you sell a comic through a comic book store. And then Matt King is the following Sunday, The Insanity of Volume 2 of Tales to Enlighten. This is 550 pages of pure insanity that enlightens you, by the way. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for joining us this far, and we'll see you out there. Make more comics.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, guys. Later on.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Be good.